I'm a little bit feeling a little bit self-conscious because I'm recording on a dubious setup. I've got a gorilla pod and the microphone is perched on top of it because I didn't bring the right connector.
Where are you?
And the other thing is that I'm in my sister's room, so all I can think of is content, content, content.
Okay, well, that's fine because we know that this is all about content this week. We've got things to catch up on.
We do indeed. We do indeed. Yeah. So should we start?
Let's do it. Let's just peel that plaster off.
Peel it off. You know what?
What?
I'm going to give it a go. This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
I know exactly what I want to talk about, but I haven't thought through the implications of it, because that's what you're for.
Okay, right. So I'm the one who's going to go, whoa, 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 time out, time out, time out. This is too much. Is that my job?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Or you can, how do I say, bring up something like soaking, like last week, and distract everyone and all people and everyone. Actually, Ruby, my lovely and smart niece, she's my niece.
Yes.
Ruby said to me, do you think that some people might be put off by the titles to your episodes?
And what was her major concern there, I wonder?
I don't know. It was something about, I don't know if I don't know whether you even look at the titles these days.
I do, but I can't always remember them. Last week's was something, what was it?
Something about to a full-on orgy or something.
That's right. It went from a little bit to a full-on orgy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
a little bit of premarital sex to a full-on orgy, I think, is what it was.
Nice. And I think about the way I think about that is it's almost I'm thinking it much more like it's like it says on the tin, like it's not hiding the fact that that's the kind of content.
Yeah, I guess, though, what it might do is it might make people think that we are talking about our experience of ... as opposed to that is one line in a lot of meandering. Speaking of meandering, we're in danger of going off topic.
Okay,
Simon,
so,
bring the content.
Sorry. So, this is... I don't know what to make of this, Lee Miller, and I am Lee David Miller, and I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. So, when I was in Rome, not only did I do as the Romans do, but I was mostly hanging out in an apartment, which where Lil lives, which is, I think it's about 3 flights up, so it's high. And we were breakfasting and dinnering on the balcony every night.
Yeah,
What do they say, al fresco? Is that what that means?
That is what it means indeed. Al fresco.
I think it's an Italian word, isn't it?
In the air. We should probably ask the person who is fluent in Italian, not me.
Could that person please write in info@midlifing.net and let us know what al fresco means? And also there was, quite cutely, I guess, in the bathroom, there's a window which opens right up, and it's a sort of square window. Or a square, window that opens right out. And have you ever had the feeling or the desire, or the thought to jump?
Oh, out of a window off a balcony?
Yeah, because I just want to say that every time I'm in a space in which it's possible to imagine myself falling off or jumping, it seems as if I do. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not at all talking about suicide ideation.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like it's much more, it's like I'm doing that. It's much more like curiosity mixed with weird desire.
Right.
And so just to, hang on, one more little thing about the window in the bathroom. It's square, and it would be quite a job to climb out of it and fall, but the thought I have is to run and jump through it like Superman.
Okay, so, question. Have you vocalized this to anybody else?
This is it.
Right. You are not the first person who has told me this.
Yes, I'm sure it's not an uncommon thought.
I used to work with somebody in a building, which is not unusual. Lots of people work with people in buildings. Lots of people work with people outside of buildings.
Great start to a story, Lee. Excellent start.
The building that we worked in together, it was one of those architect design places. And before everybody jumps in and goes, "All buildings are designed by architects," you know what I mean.
I like that's the voice. That's your corrective voice. You used it last week when you're talking about split infinitives.
Yeah, it's the voice that I hear when people are telling me I'm wrong.
Does it come from anywhere, that snarky, slightly...
Yeah, there's a very specific person.
Really? Are you not allowed to share that person?
No, I don't want to share it because they're still alive.
Okay. Okay.
So,
perhaps when they die, though, you'll be able to spin it round.
They're younger than me, not by much, but they might outlast.
But you never know.
Anyway, yeah, never know. Not if they find themselves standing next to a square window in an Italian flat. So,
what a bathroom!
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. This guy that I worked with. Would never... Okay, sorry, no, I've overshot. I need to go back. We worked in a building. The building was architect designed, and it had various kind of, I guess I'm going to say, mezzanine layers, yeah? So we worked regularly on the third floor, and the third floor was probably about, gosh, I would say maybe about 80 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the third floor of a
30,
house.
That's 25 metres more or less.
Yeah, about 25 metres. Yeah. So it wasn't like the third floor of a house, which are much
survivable,
smaller.
Even.
It's, you might just at a push survive it, but would be... you would have catastrophic injuries as a result.
Yeah.
So it was the ground floor of this building was double story of this already big kind of industrial-sized building. So it was a university building.
Yeah.
Anyway, so on the third floor...
I mean, we guessed that because you've only worked in university buildings.
That's not true. That's not true. I have worked in many buildings. I've worked in truck stops. I've worked in chemists. I've worked in restaurants. I've worked in cafes.
I was thinking in your real working life, but okay.
Those all paid my rent. So
yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Yeah, but anyway.
As in my career.
Yeah.
Post late 20s. Okay. Yeah. So, I've worked in theatres. Just naming some other places I worked in. So, third floor, mezzanine, and it was sort of the mezzanine, one bit of it dropped down. If you were to jump, for example, you would drop down to the next floor where there was a bridge that ran across. And then a little bit further along the mezzanine, you would drop all the way down to the bottom. And I noticed that this colleague never went to the edge. Quite often we would just wait for assessments to start and be leaning on the balcony and looking out across the plaza below. And he would always sort of hang back to the wall, and I was like, what's going on? And he said, I've got a kind of vertigo. I said, it makes you feel really dizzy. He went, no, it gives me the overwhelming urge to jump.
Oh, that's really stretching the meaning of vertigo, isn't it?
Yeah. I think he described it as not like he was going to jump, but more like he was going to fall, but the fall would be an upward into the air fall and down onto the ground fall. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it wasn't like he was going to jump Superman style, but he would fall, and even though gravity would pull him to the ground below him, his anxiety, the feeling in his body that he would be pulled to the like a form of gravity, he would be pulled over the edge of the balcony to the
sort of
to the
sucked
drop
off the balcony.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly like that. And so you're not the first person who has talked about that sense of almost inevitability of the drop.
Yeah, it's not... that sounds like what you're describing, that it sounds like he, I'm just going to assume he, I think maybe you've used the pronoun already, that's stronger. Although it definitely takes on, it's a little bit like I'm thinking through the possibilities.
Mm.
Like, for example, could I run and jump and reach the other side and not fall?
Mm.
How would I get up onto the railing And then would I swan dive, or would I go and how would I look when I landed? Like, what kind of shape would my body be in when I landed? Is there any possibility of survival? Or it's like going through through the kind of machinations or the possibilities of that. So it's quite, and that is not it's definitely, and then mostly my response is to do that thing which we describe as someone walking over your grave.
Mm.
That's the saying, isn't it? As if someone's
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it's that where you go, oh,
yeah,
that kind of shivering.
That shiver. Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of like you're describing our flat in Lisbon in many respects. That I don't know if you remember the back of it, because we spent such a lot of time me sending you out and crying about the fact that it was in such an appalling state. You really,
I mean, the windows were all very open.
Yeah. They really had to be. Because we were trying to get... Exactly. I have to say, you are very, very welcome, Simon, to come for a return visit where we will spend a lot of time
indoors.
Where I look after you.
And you never kick me out.
I never kick you out. I say, what do you need? Put your feet up. It's all fine. You'll have a different
bedroom.
bedroom.
Just to see how far I could push that before you'd start to go, get out, boy, you're out of here.
Yeah, go for a walk.
Yeah. Get the shit out of my face.
The flat is looking really, really stunning at the minute, so please do come.
I'm very happy for you.
Anyway, so am I. We're going away in a couple of weeks. Very excited for Anyway, so you know a little bit about what the flat in Lisbon is like, and when I hang out the washing on the line,
which is at the back, right?
It's at the back, yeah. So
it's quite precipitous, quite...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I rehearse the anxiety of falling, but only to make sure that I am as safe as possible. So I have to bend my knees and drop my hips so that they are well below the window frame, so that if I were to topple, I wouldn't, gravity wouldn't pull me out the window. Because I'm very, very, very aware of that not being a good outcome. So I know it in my body, but I don't rehearse it. I shudder before I get to the point where I hit the floor. But, and this is where I'm going to sound unwell. In a nearby building at the same level as us, there was a newborn a couple of years ago.
Just Michael Jackson just came to mind then.
And I was sitting on the balcony, and I could see this mother and the newborn on the balcony. And I thought to myself, what would happen if I threw it off?
We are strange creatures, aren't we?
Well, here's the thing. I felt quite bad about that. And I immediately went to the internet for a response.
Yeah, of course you did. By the way, I haven't done any. No, that's what I mean. I haven't given this any thought other than, wow, that's a thing. I haven't gone online to look about, imagining falling.
Well, psychologists say the idea of throwing a baby off a building is quite normal. And it's what stops us throwing babies off buildings.
Oh!
It's actually a perfectly normal developmental process where you go, holy shit, I can't believe I thought that. I would never do that. I would never do that. And that's what stops us being psychopathic or sociopathic. Because what we do is we rehearse it and we have a horrified response and then we don't do it. So it's really, really normal to imagine throwing a baby out of a building or running an old lady over as she goes across the road too slowly. Where you don't think...
it's not like you drop that into the conversation as well. But yeah, gotcha.
What would happen if I were to, I do this very often when I'm walking the dog, Jeff. I see little dogs, and I often think, and this is awful, what would happen if I stamped on that chihuahua? Just stamped on it really hard. Because it's so small.
This conversation is so revealing about you, Lee Miller. I've never thought about stamping on a chihuahua.
You probably don't pay attention to them but you probably don't pay attention to them in the same way I do, because I'm aware that as they come towards Jeff, they're under my feet. And what I'm doing is I'm sort of extrapolating from the, oh gosh, don't stand on it, to what would happen if, Not just if I stood on it, but if I was to jump and put all of my weight on it, what would the outcome be? And of course, I don't want to do that. It's what stops me. And according to the reading I did, which was only very kind of like Wikipedia-level reading, so please don't ask me
Don't
for
judge you.
citations.
Yeah.
It's so that we can, we moderate our behaviour in those contexts where we find ourselves thinking, oh shit, what if? We go to the farthest end to pull back to normal behaviours.
Yeah. So, well, that is fascinating. And a couple of things come to mind. One is that I think was one thing that's different, in the example you gave about sort of lowering your centre of gravity and making sure you're safe. I don't think my behaviour changes as a consequence of these imaginings. I don't think I'm concerned for my safety. Oh, I'm not sure about that though. There's also another thing, which is I don't remember having these thoughts ever as a child.
Right.
Like it seems to have got stronger as I've got more middle-aged, just to get us on topic. And the other thing is, what you've described is it makes a lot of sense. So I'll just say sort of intuitively it makes a lot of sense that there's something about our capacity to imagine, which is a kind of rehearsal for what could be. And as you say, to modify or to limit our behaviour. But it does make me think about, you mentioned him last week, Edward S. Casey, a phenomenologist who has written a beautiful book about, I think it's just called Imagining. And one of the things, and you can do it right now, listeners and you, Lee, will you just say, just imagine, for those of you who know what Jeffrey looks like, he looks like any old Dalmatian, but let's just say a Dalmatian, imagine a Dalmatian, and if you were to imagine a Dalmatian, one of the things that I like Casey's very those, as they say, thick descriptions in the phenomenological sense of imagining is that there is no limit to it, that when you imagine a Dalmatian, there is no edges to what it is that you're imagining. You're seeing this thing, but it has no, it's like it's kind of contained in something, but nothing in particular, if you understand what I mean. It's kind of like it's limitless, and yet it also, like what's on the edge of that thing you're seeing, I guess would be another way of asking that question. So that's just as as an aside, which is, wow, imagining's amazing. But you're kind of describing what I understand to be a kind of a function or a survival tactic. That imagining's a kind of a survival tactic in those consequences.
And not just survival. Well, the dropping of my hips is survival, but I don't think that's an imagining. I think that's because I'm just really aware that it's a long way up.
And you're leaning a long way over. You're leaning a long way over to hang out washing. Yeah.
To hang out my washing, exactly. And I do keep thinking, I'm going to move where the washing line is. I think I'm going to put it around the back. And you had those kinds of conversations because it just feels like, health and safety.
This can't be right, yeah.
Everybody's washing line is in the same place. I've yet to see any of the little old ladies who live nearby fall out of the window.
I'm sure there has been a death though. Surely. So I don't know if there's anything else to say about that except it's disconcerting. And it is a little distracting. There's no question it distracts me from being in the conversation with Lil over our cereal or over our toast or whatever it is that we're having.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's also part of functioning appropriately in the world. It's imagining the catastrophe, but it's how do we not get then caught up in the catastrophe? It sounds like when you get to and then what would happen if I was to run and jump headlong out of the window like Superman? That's where we might have tipped into.
It's a little fantastical.
That's maybe not keeping you safe right now.
But it is such a square little window too. You really, you just have to. I should have taken a photo of it, but it's quite something to kind of think, I could leap out of that, and I think I'd be okay. There's a little part which I think I'd be okay, which I just would not.
Would you? I mean, you see, I don't have confidence in my proprioception. I would imagine I would smash headlong into the wall.
I think I might. Oh, you mean you would even make it out of the window?
I wouldn't even make it to the window. I'd just
well, your hips would get jammed. I'm not saying
I'm
you've got fat
confident-
hips, by the way.
I was going to say, I'm confident my hips would get through. It would be my shoulders.
That's your
that I'd worry
shoulders,
about.
yeah.
My
Very
shoulders are the
very
widest part
broad-shouldered
of my
human
body.
being you are. It's true.
Well, not very, but they're wider than my hips. I'm
You've
a
got
classic
Chris Martin
V.
shoulders, you do. So I don't know why, but it was very early in the morning, and I clicked on a watch Coldplay at Glastonbury link. And
Right.
and I thought to myself as I was watching how well the way that Finn described it was what's that phenomenon called when you have there's a player in a video game who's only there to
non-playable character, NPC.
NPC. He described, so this is Finn describing Coldplay as basically a kind of NPC, or that the music was a little bit NPC. Which I thought was a really interesting and quite fascinating description. And yet he also said, and this is partly because of what I said to him, was how that group, and I guess in particular Mr. Shoulders himself, Chris Shoulders Martin, was able to orchestrate an experience for 150,000 people in a kind of twee and quite transparent, and yet I still found myself, this is watching it on TV, I'm not even there, hooked into that kind of celebration of togetherness or something. And I was thinking, wow, that's pretty for NPC music. Or and again, I should say I quite like Coldplay. I'm not at all concerned about how uncool Coldplay are. And the other thing, and I really got hooked. And the other thing is that everyone in the crowd knew all the words. And Finn says, he goes, I don't think I've ever listened to the words of a Coldplay song, and yet I know all the words of the Coldplay songs. They're in the ether of the...
Yeah. But that's the MOR, the NPC, the elevator music of it all, isn't it? That they are...
It's true, that's how I described it to him as well,
just
elevator music.
Yeah, they're on this side of irritating.
But when you have a crowd, you've got a song called... Is it called Paradise? Sing it.
Yeah. Paradise. I'm not going to sing it well because I don't like it.
See, but when you've got a crowd singing that, it's kind of incredible. It transforms the elevatorness of it into something extraordinary. I'll just say that, so I know.
But don't you think that's something about the collective? Because if you think about a hymn, what's the first thing that comes to? We plough the fields and scatter the good seed on the land, and it was fed and watered by God's almighty hand. And it's like, God, that is a shit tune.
And shit
It's
lyrics.
a shit tune, shit lyrics. And yet, if I'm in a church, and bearing in mind, I have no faith. If I am in a church and I hear enough people singing it, I will get sad. Or not sad, I'll get emotional. I will get like, because everybody's leaning into the same direction and doing the same thing and feeling something. I think it's about collectivity.
But it's not just any song, though, right?
I don't know. Is it?
Because it's not like every band that appears on the, whatever it's called, the pyramid stage, who headlines Glastonbury. Because I'm sure when Paul McCartney did, maybe that was last year, there was a little bit like, it's like trying. But Coldplay were kind of not trying. I probably imagine that even you, a hater of the Beatles, thinks that Paul McCartney is a better songwriter, was a better songwriter and is a better songwriter than Chris Martin ever will be. Close. Too close to call?
I would just say it all functions in a very similar space for me. It doesn't touch me. So I wouldn't be able to say which was better or worse because I don't like them. Well, that's our content. Any stray thoughts and bits of fluff in the ether before we draw a gentle line under today's events?
Let me check. Are you there just to hold on for me while I check?
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you need me to vamp?
I'm just going to cross out leaping out of Windows urge.
That's a good thing to cross out of your book, because if anybody finds it after you've leapt out of a window, they'll go, oh, well, he finally crossed it off his list.
There's a YouTuber, this is a little bit of fluff, shocked to find there's a lot of people baking, a lot of sourdough stuff on YouTube. There's this one guy in America he's built a microbakery in his house, which has a...
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, except it's like he's taken out an entire side of the house and built a tiny bakery with a 2-deck oven, a little in a bench space, and he's got a YouTube channel, which I don't know how many followers, if that's what they're called, are on it. I don't think that many. But what's shocking is how much money this man must have spent on this thing. And it's appalling how bad he is at making sourdough.
Oh, really? That is not what I thought you were going to tell me.
It's really, really difficult to watch because it's so clear from how he's let's just kind of say he's just poking the bread, right? And you've baked so much bread in your life, that the last thing you're doing is kind of poking it, meaning it's like he's treating it with his fingertips as opposed to his whole body.
Oh, no. Okay, I am anxious.
Yeah, exactly. And it just made me think, wow. I mean, I'm really interested in the craft, as you know, of making sourdough. Like, it really interests me how good it is that I might get and how skilled I might get. And yet I'm watching this guy who's spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands, many more thousands than I spent, just to be clear. And has a YouTube channel with followers, and it's like the performance of something. And wow, did it get under my skin, Lee Miller. Really got under my skin.
Okay, so for me, it's like you've described those men who get to a certain age and then discover cycling.
It's so.
You can see that they've spent as much money as they can on that carbon fibre framed bike. And I'm not intending to body shame anybody, but I'm going to. They pour themselves into their Lycra, which they do the thing that you see good cyclists do, which is leave it unzipped to their pubis, and you think, oh, kiddo, really? There's a zip there for a reason. Zip it up. And they tap about in their cleats, and I seem to find them outside of coffee shops on a Saturday morning.
A lot of sitting outside coffee shops.
Yeah.
A lot of Lycra, a lot of coffee.
In expensive Rafa gear with incredibly expensive bikes, and then you see them get on and you think, oh, geez, are they going to fall off? You're not even convinced that they can stay upright.
It's the equivalent.
So I think there's something about hobbies in a certain type of, and I'm going to say, man's life, and a certain point in a certain type of man's life where it's like there is more money than sense.
Goodbye. I'm going to stop recording.